Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be interesting, I think. I don't know. It is a suggestion from a subscriber. Her name's Carol. Shout out to you. She brought up this really interesting point. I talk about my ex-boyfriends a lot. Surprise! And apparently that's like not socially acceptable for a lot of people. And she wasn't saying that, she wasn't criticizing me, she was just being like, hey, have you ever been told this? My mom said this, and it's an interesting thought to dissect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be considered a faux pas. Yeah.
And there's a lot of different angles and things that it made me think of. I have not brought this up with Greg yet because I wanted this to be like an organic conversation. So I'm excited. Before we go on, I want you to leave me a comment. Do I talk about my exes too much? Yeah, probably. But does it bother you? Is that something that you would or wouldn't do? Why does it bother you? Like, let me know. I want to know what you do. Is this like just not, is this completely abnormal, or is it just something that like you've seen other people do it, it's just not your thing?
Right on.
Yeah. Subscribe to this video.
Sure. Yeah, this video in particular.
Just this video, not my channel. Definitely not my channel. Subscribe to this. Oh, fuck.
The channel.
Subscribe to the channel, my channel.
For your videos.
For my videos. And turn the bell notification on. I am going to be doing a lot of videos about like cheating and relationships and just things like that because it interests me. And this kind of relates to that. So yeah. This all really started before Carol. This started with a comment on my Jake the Snake video, which is still up. I don't delete comments unless you're just outwardly rude. Yeah. Like name calling a subscriber. Call me names, I don't care, but don't disrespect my subscribers. So someone said that the video was in poor taste, they didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. I talked about, like, he's not even an ex, truly. He's a F-boy.
Yeah.
And
it's a thing that happened.
And a thing happened, and it really affected me. And so they said that it obviously really affected me, and I obviously did not move on from it, and I should not be a shoulder to lean on if I haven't worked through my own shit, and blah, 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 blah. And why even talk about this if you claim to be so happy and have been with your boyfriend for years or whatever. Like,
right.
Really,
like that somehow invalidates the trauma that you went through and your, like, your willingness to share that. And
it was a traumatic thing that I made sure to turn it into a positive at the end. Like, I didn't want it to just be like this shitty thing that happened to me.
Yeah, it was your way of taking it back, I guess.
Yeah, and I shared that, and that is a very vulnerable story, but it's important because I know a lot of girls have gotten in situations like that, and guys are dicks.
Dudes suck.
We make bad choices too, like, so I just think it made them uncomfortable, specifically like the story in that one, but I know that I talk about my exes a lot. It's just kind of part of who I am. Now, you had said that it's the cost of admission, which is a Dan Savage ideal.
Yeah,
ideology,
I have always known that, like, you have a giant box of things from past relationships that, like...
I've downsized it. I just have, like, a box about my ex-husband and then a few scattered items. But literally, I used to have a boyfriend box, like, about every significant relationship. Like,
yeah, those things are meaningful to you. And I've always known that. Like, I've always known that you would be friends with some people that you have been in relationships with, not with others, but, like, I don't know. It's never really been that big of a deal to me.
And if I'm still a friend with an ex, like, you are too.
Right.
And if I would have ever come across a situation, like, or an ex where, like, I wanted to be friends with them and you didn't like them or didn't vibe with them or whatever, I wouldn't have...
Yeah, you would naturally kind of steer away from it just because, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to do it because I didn't want you to, but because you didn't want to.
If it affected you, right. I didn't want any parts of that. So, specifically, Scott. I cheated on Greg with Scott early in our relationship when we reconnected. And I did not speak about Scott. I tried. I tried on a few occasions because I knew his addiction was getting really bad. And at one point...
You're talking about after I found out?
After. This is years... So this is like maybe 2 years ago, I would say. It was a year before he overdosed. And I knew that it was bad. And I came to Greg and I thought that Scott was going to die. And I mentioned that I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to see him. I had already talked to him, but it was just like a brief text conversation. And I was putting feelers out to see like how it would go. And he was still not ready.
Yeah, no.
And I shut it down. I didn't talk to him anymore. Like, I would respect what you would say or want. You know, your feelings matter to me. But in not talking about Scott and like not mentioning it, gave me a secret then, like he had
Yeah.
texted me and asked me, like, after he got out of this recovery house or got into a recovery house, and I was like, I am the kind of person that I want to share that. I want to share everything with Greg, like anything and everything. I want to share it, but I also like wear my emotions on my sleeve. I care about everything and everyone too much, and I talk about my emotions a lot.
What I was more afraid of then is like it being detrimental to our relationship for you to get emotionally invested in a person who was struggling so badly and who
That had hurt us.
had already hurt us, and just I wasn't prepared to like it wasn't worth it to me. Like
You had every right to still be upset or reserved, and
I didn't see the gain for myself personally, and like I should have cared more about your side of the relationship with him, like how it wasn't for him, it was for you. And I didn't really realize that at the time. I guess I more viewed it as it was for him to help him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was like just to like see him, hopefully one last time, and just be like, I tried. I gave it everything I could.
Yeah.
When Scott passed, I definitely beat myself up because I wanted to be there in more ways. I wanted to help. I wanted to talk to him, and I chose not to out of respect for our relationship. And now the Megan situation and the Scott situation, like, I talked about everything, how I felt. I talked about her. I talked about it so much, so much, but I've processed it. The Scott thing, I think you really came to a point where you accepted it because he died.
Yeah.
It was okay to talk about him because he
yes.
died.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I genuinely believe that if we had more years, if Scott hadn't died yet, at some point we would have touched on that. We would have crossed, like, because we talk about everything and anything now. It's just he wasn't like a something in the forefront of our relationship.
Yeah,
because he was somewhere else doing his own thing, so I didn't think about him and see him.
Right.
But had he popped into my life one more time, maybe then we would have had that conversation.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the last time he popped into my life was when I found out he overdosed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I genuinely believe that this is not a normal relationship. This is also a long-term relationship. So we have worked on this for years. We have gotten to a complete rock bottom where we just bared it all, everything at that point. So
there was nothing left to lose. So it's like, well, if we're going to try, we might as well put it all on the table.
Yeah. And I respected Greg's decision to not want to talk about Scott or his emotions with it, just because that's who Greg is. Like, I am a talker about my emotions. You are not.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, like, you didn't think about it or work through it. Like,
not only that, like, it had happened such a long time ago that the event itself of you cheating was less of an issue to me than the resulting impact on our relationship that kind of spurred everything. That was where my emotions were tied up, was in...
The cheating sucked, but I lied about it for a year and a half.
And it affected the way you loved me.
It did.
That was what was painful to me.
Because I was trying to... If it were up to me at that point, I would have kept it buried forever because I knew that it was going to hurt him, and I thought that I was protecting you or helping you, but really I was carrying this weight that was, like, really bringing me down because, like, I knew I wasn't genuine. I knew I felt like a piece of crap.
You had made a huge mistake.
I had made a huge mistake, and then I lied about it, which was the bigger mistake, because then it was just like this.
It always is. We learn this as we get older. Some of us slower than others,
Yeah.
and some of us never at all. But
Sadly. But what about in live streams? I have had some ex-boyfriends or guys I've hung out with. Dizzy came in once.
I genuinely
Steven.
enjoy when they pop up because I know so much about them, and
I tell them everything.
Yeah, it's like they're friends to me for the most part. Like
Dizzy specifically, he was like, one day he just randomly after the live stream, he's like, I think Dizzy would like me.
Yeah,
I was like,
for
he
sure.
would, but why? He's like, oh, he's just in our live stream. I was like, yeah, he was.
Talking about things that
that you agree with, and
or am interested.
Now, I have exes that are total pieces of crap that I do not talk to, do not associate with, don't even really mention on here because I don't want to. There's, like, one specific relationship that was really bad in college. I mention him, but, like, only mention him if it's, like, a detail related to him.
Right.
Like, he lived in New Jersey, and my favorite restaurant's in New Jersey. But I think that you should try to talk about your past relationships as long as you are being respectful, you have to do whatever is best for your relationship. Now, if Greg, I don't know, I'm also the kind of person that I would have to share.
Yeah.
If I was with someone that wouldn't let me share, like my ex-husband, I tried to share certain things with him or talk about certain things with him and I felt shame. I felt judged, and it was hard.
Yeah,
and there was one particular moment I was struggling with something in my recovery, like from my active addiction. I brought it up, and it was horrible. He made me feel horrible about it, and it was like I'm married to him, and all of a sudden I realized, like,
shame on top of shame is like one of the least helpful things you can do to somebody.
And it made me realize that I can't be honest, and that sucked.
I think the lack of honesty, that if I don't talk about my exes much, but
you have a few of them that we mentioned.
Only because I would if it was relevant to whatever we were talking about. Yeah. Like, I don't know, and also, like, you were a substantial chunk of my past, so it's like we have a lot to draw from. But like I've told you things about, like, my first Megan, Molly, but I've dated a bunch of people, but only a couple of them meant anything to me too.
But when you dated, like, Mary Beth, I was there. Like, I was still
and we've talked
in
about
the
that
peripheral.
a bunch.
When you were Sarah, I was still there. Like,
right.
So it's not like there's parts of you, like my ex relationships, you weren't around for that. So, like, that's why I share it.
True.
And also, you guys are seeing YouTube videos about these topics because they happened during my active addiction or when I was not, pre-recovery. And that is a substantial reason why I was the way I was.
Yeah, we are the sum of our experiences. And when you've been in relationships as much as you have, like, of course a lot of you has been formed during these relationships. So it's relevant. Yeah.
I started dating at 14, and I literally was not single since
my story is very similar. Like, the only time I was single was when I was in prison or in jail.
Yeah.
Like, I was always in a relationship.
I defined myself by who I was with. Like, I don't think that I chose people that weren't unlike me. They were very much like me and, like, lived the life I want, So I wasn't changing myself to them, but I was defined by the relationship. I was John's girlfriend. I was Jeff's girlfriend. You know what I mean? And that's who I was. That's how I got value, because they loved me, and that was my value. I didn't have any love for myself. My past relationships are relevant on YouTube, but in my daily life, do I mention my exes very often? Aside from, like, Brent, who just passed, and then Steven, because Brent just passed. Like, I don't think so.
It's more that I know these people are meaningful to you. You'll share anecdotes if and when they come up, but yeah, we're not, like, sitting, like, talking about, what did you do when you were with him? What was your most fun thing then? You know what I mean?
Or you tell me something about your day, and I'd be like, oh, well, John did this, Yeah,
and we don't share it with one another to make the other one feel insecure or as a weapon or any. I can very much see a situation in which you use an ex to attack your partner.
Yeah. My ex never did that.
Right, exactly. Which is not what we do, and what I would not consider healthy behavior.
And I try so hard, after reading the 5 love languages, I try so hard to make sure that Greg's love tank is full. That reference essentially means that I am showing love in a language that he understands, which is physical touch and acts of service. And I make it a point to go out of my way to be affectionate, because I know that means so much to him.
And when you do it, it really matters.
And it's like, if I don't know, if I was not doing that and then talking about my exes and consumed with my past, that would be bad. That would be unhealthy. But I think it's healthy to talk about it as long as you keep your relationship in the forefront and respected and most important. And you are the most important.
Right. They're your exes for a reason. Like,
they played a big role.
I'm confident enough in our relationship where the mention of an ex is not going to make me insecure about anything.
I don't think it ever has. I think the Scott thing didn't make you insecure. It just made you. It hurt.
Yeah, I was angry.
Yeah. I can't imagine a world where you would ever feel insecure, because, like, I've always just, like, I made a mistake and I regret that mistake, and
my brain doesn't let me feel insecure very often unless it's like, I don't know. Well, that's a paradoxical thing. Like, there's times where, like, I feel nothing if not insecure, but then there's a lot of areas where I won't ever. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I don't question it. If it works to my advantage, I don't care.
Yep. But I don't know. So I'm going to share more stories of exes eventually. I don't know when or what it'll be about. That's not really the point of my channel, but I share these stories for a reason.
Because there's lessons to be taken from them.
Yeah, I want to paint a bigger picture about who I am, who I was in the past. That would be like the dudes I've loved before or reacting to old photos. And the other ones are really important lessons. Like Jake the Snake. That's a big one. And it sucked, but it has a valuable lesson to be
Exactly.
learned.
The past happened, and hopefully you learned some things from it. And if there's something to be gained from sharing those lessons or experiences, like, why should they be off limits, I guess?
Exactly. And then sometimes I might bring them up just for fun because something funny happened or I thought of them. But I do it knowing fully that you are secure, we are happy, and I'm not disrespecting you.
And I'm not saying that everyone who doesn't like when people talk about their exes is insecure. Like, I'm sure there
could be reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of reasons. Like, especially if, like, whatever. Like, to each their own. This happens to work for us, and we feel like communication and honesty are paramount above all. But we work on it.
If we see an attractive person, like, Greg will tell me, like, oh, they're attractive. Like, that guy's really attractive. Like, we have that, like, we talk about, did you see that guy's shoes? Like,
right.
Any thought that comes to my mind, I share with him.
Right. Yeah. Which I prefer it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's better. I don't want to keep secrets, so.
And, like, I don't know, I choose to walk through life with you, and I want to share all of it with you.
Yeah.
So.
Before I wrap this up though, the price of admission, can you kind of summarize that and what that means?
So the price of admission is, like, when you are starting a relationship with anyone, not even like, anytime you're in a relationship with someone, there are certain things about that person that you just have to accept as them, and that you can't change, and that is the price of being with them. Like, it's those things that you won't hold against them and make them change or make them feel bad about doing.
Yeah. And no one can be everything
right.
to you. It's just not physically possible. So you have to accept what you need and is like a non-negotiable.
And what they need. They may need something, and it's up to them to communicate what they're asking of you. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't do that, then it's you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to communication. Mm-hmm. You will hear me say it over and over and over and over again.
It's just saved our relationship.
Yeah.
Like, by deciding to just talk about it, even the hard stuff, like, it's made no conversation hard now.
Right, and just given us so much.
Yeah.
Like,
but no one's gonna be the one. I think Dan Savage says you might get like a 0.85 or something, but you gotta round up. Whatever that, missing 0.15 is, that's the price of admission.
Yeah.
Accept it.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it is. And, like, my price of admission is knowing that my past matters to me, and I have always been in a relationship. So my past, if I share something from my past, it happened while I was dating someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Savage is amazing. Like, you should really check him out. He's got such great beliefs about relationships that it's really eye-opening. But Savage Love Podcast, right?
Savage Lovecast.
No, Savage Lovecast. But, yeah. Thanks.
The jingle in my head, yeah.
Thanks for doing this with me.
Sure.
If you guys have any questions, comments, whatever, if you disagree, if you agree, let me know. I want to hear about it in the comments. Yeah. And, yeah.
Because, like, we only know what we live.
Yeah, I don't know what works for you guys. I don't know, like...
I love hearing about other people's experiences.
Yeah, I would really like to know, like, if you don't think it's appropriate, why? Is there, like, a particular reason? Is it disrespectful? Is it rude? Does it hurt? Like, I mean, I think that's all going to be very subjective and, like, depend on the person, but I would like to know.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that I don't care about that maybe other people probably would.
True. But, yeah. Thanks for sticking around, and I will see you guys in the next video.
See ya.
Bye.